Okay, so here we go. Next build. Something different. So for this time around, doing a Chevrolet Fleetmaster Aerosedan from Galaxie Kits, car model company I have never built a kit from before, so this will be something a little bit new. But I saw this at Willis Hobbies, one of my local hobby shops, and I love these old style 40s into the very early 1950s style designs. I love the wood grain on cars, even though at this point it probably was an applique, not an actual, wooden door, because cars had gone to all metal at that point. But I just love that look. So I saw this kit, figured, gotta add it to the stash. So into the stash it went, and after finishing the Honda Monkey from Tamiya, I wanted to get back to doing a car, and I was looking around my stash, and this is what caught my eye. So boop, onto the table, and it will get a build. Now, since this is a company I've never built from before, I'll do a little bit more in terms of the initial impressions here. On the side of the box, we do have two more representations of the stock version. Yes, it is a three-way build. I will definitely be going with the stock, those white walls, the stock stance, the wood grain. That's what I want. And seeing this color scheme on the side, I think that's what I might go for. I really like that two-tone with the wood grain. I think that really looks period. So cool stuff. This is the custom style build. I don't like cars riding super low like that, so I won't be doing that. And we do get a nicely detailed chassis, engine, so that all looks good. And then again, the stock. So let's see, because it is a little bit of a bigger box than you normally see on a kit. So let's see what we have in here. We have instructions, and then we go into our bagged goods, and I'm just going to show these real quick. Then I'm going to take a little break, and the tires look nice. Inserts for white walls. But I'm going to then take a break after getting these bags out, and I will come back with the bags open, and we will take a closer look at the plastic. Okay. And we do get clear red for the brake lights. I like that. Ooh, big chrome tree. Check that out. And it looks like nice chrome. All right, good stuff. And well, since I have it in my hand right now, we're going to talk about the decals right now. Immediate impression, I love that we have two different shades of wood grain decal. So however you want to paint the kit, you can choose which wood grain looks better with your color scheme. That's really nice. I really like that. Other than that, we do get instrument gauges. Looks like we get some insignia. Looks like some decals for the engine bay. Otherwise, these are logos for if you want to do the, custom or, a drag or street version, whatever you want to call it. A nice range of license plates. Obviously, only going to need two of these. So these will be a nice addition, the rest of them, into the extra box. And since they are not all geared specifically to this car, they're not all geared specifically to this car, so we can certainly use those on something else later. So that's good stuff. All right, quick break, open the bags, be right back. Okay, after some slice and dice and bag opening, let's take a look at some more detail on things, starting with instructions. Whenever I go to a manufacturer I have not worked before, I always like to take a good look at the instructions. So see how things are shown to go together. And the reason I'm hesitating, I immediately picked up, this is a very cool they give you the color choices from the original car. So that is nice. So if we're looking to do authentic color choice, we know what Chevrolet offered back in 1947. But opening up, we go to engine assembly here. You know, a kit's a kit, but these look like they're laid out pretty nicely. We even have text describing our assembly process. I know I see that with Mobius kits, but otherwise I have not seen that in kits before. So that is a nice addition to basically talk you through. And it looks like, yes, and they're giving you the order in which to assemble. That is good. And then we go to attaching our wheels, adding the engine, interior, separate door cards. Love that. Okay, we get a separate body pan, and then the interior to that, mounting all of that in there, doing all miscellaneous work on the body shell, and then putting our sub-assemblies together here. That all looks good. Nice little call out as to how to work with the decals. That's nice. And then here again, some specific notes about adding the wood side trim. Okay. And then looks like we're doing a final detail wrap up. And that is it. And on the last page here, tips for personalizing your model. That's pretty neat. Yeah, cutting up the windows. If you want a window open, I will most likely be doing that. And what do we have here? Oh, making fog lights. Apparently you can refashion parts into fog lights. I think that's pretty cool. I might do that. All right, so that looks pretty good. So let's go right into our major body components and see what we have here. Alrighty, so this is the major stuff for the kit. So let's start with the frame. It is one piece, but it is separate. I do always enjoy that. Plastic feels pretty good. And there we go. It is molded straight. There is no twist in there. So that is nice to see. So that is looking good. And on top of that, we're going to have a floor pan. And well, this is nicely detailed under here. They have all the ribbing. Looks like we got some lines molded in. That's very nice. Body pan. You have some carpet texture. The seat even has some texture on it. That's very nice. Door panels here. Now, you know, cars at this time were not super fancy, let's say, but we have some texturing. We have some indented lines there. Obviously, lots of holes on there, which is nice. That means we're probably going to have armrests, window cranks, door handles, maybe a side mirror adjustment yoke. So pedals are all going to be separate. I like all of that. That's looking good. We have the giant hood they used to put on these cars. That big old cowl hood coming to the point. I think that is super cool. We have a really nice firewall. And we have some beautiful hood hinges here. Nice. So far, I am liking Galaxie kits. And then we have this body shell here, and this looks like this should fit in there. So it's basically two pieces, but they seem to mate pretty well, even just doing it real rough, pushing it together with nothing else on the mat to guide it. So that's looking good. Those giant front fenders. This too. That is straight, no warp. And then the big old body shell itself. I love this swooping shape like this. This is why I love these cars, because they have you know, very aquiline lines, I guess you could say, the way they just flow. They were probably, well, I can tell they were horribly inefficient in terms of their inner space and how that was used, but boy, they do look nice. And this has still the style with the lower roof and the narrow windows. So we're not going to be able to see too much of that interior once it's in there, but probably go with a lighter color for the interior. You know, I love that Krylon sand pebble, so that will then bring out some of the detail. And we even have roof liner detail in there. So that is looking good. Tires. Tires at the time were nothing fancy, and that's how these are. But we have the nice recesses to pop the white walls in, so those should look just dandy. These are our wood trim pieces, so these will mount over the decal and drop right in there. Oh man, even in white plastic, I love the way that's looking. That should be cool. Our aforementioned white walls, so they'll drop right into the tires. Even though these are molded in white, the white on the plastic they're using in this kit has a little bit of a off-white tone to it, so I'll probably just hit these with a quick coat of flat white, because if you're gonna do white walls, they gotta be white, and then they look awesome. Clear parts are super clear. There we go. As usual, I'm going to keep these in the bag so they do not get scratched. You have nice pattern on those headlights in there. That's good stuff. And while we're looking at that, we get the two itty bitty tail lights. Look at those. But they are done in the red glass, red clear, so don't have to worry about that. And now getting into one of our assembly sprues, and immediate impression, super nice detail on these front steering knuckles. Wow, look at that. That is good stuff. And that was the back side of the tree. Wheel detail looks good. Yes, this is all looking very nice. All right. Galaxie models. You guys are doing a good job. Now, I don't know how it's all going to assemble. Hopefully it assembles well. But one thing that I also noticed right away, I am not really seeing any flash at all in these parts. These are very clean molds. So that is always a big relief. All right, moving into our next big sprue of parts. We have some seats, seat backs, even molded in a relief for the cloth handle on the back of the seat, and mostly our engine parts. Rear skirts for the fenders, to do that modified. I will not be using those. I do not like fender skirts. They're not going to be on there. But we do get a nicely done engine, and we get separate sun visor parts. I like that. And we get a nice battery of engine pieces to assemble here, so that should look nice when it is done. And then last but not least, we have our chrome, and as I said, the chrome looks good. It does not have any kind of gaudy shine to it. So we have two grills. Oh, that's interesting. Two different styles of grill. Okay. All right, so two different periods of the car. It did say the kit can build 3 different periods of the car, so there you go. Got nice chromed up lug covers there. Got a nice grill. I assume that's the grill, although we have these grills. I don't know. That's what instructions are for. But this all looks very nice. Windshield wipers. Yes, this is all looking very nice. All right, so there we go. That is the 1947 Chevrolet Aerosedan from Galaxie Models. So, gonna get started on this guy. This already, I am excited about this because this looks like it should be a really neat build. So, going to get started. All right. As always, thank you for watching. Please do like, subscribe, share, hit that alert button, all that good YouTube stuff. And as I said, thank you for watching. And now I will get into building this heritage machine. Okay. So, the reason I did this, the way this goes together, we have the frame underneath, and I'm going to take this apart to better illustrate, but frame is underneath, chassis pan, the interior, floor of the interior, obviously the body, the front fenders, remember this was a whole separate unit, the hood, and I have the firewall pressed in. So I wanted to do this because, and now I'm breaking it apart already, I wanted to see how these major assemblies went together, particularly as how these front fenders work with meeting to the body, because we have door seams here which need to match a hood seam. There's quite a bit of things that need to reconcile. So did the dry fit, and I'll show what I learned, but it basically dry fits really well. So I'm not seeing any problems, for one. Two, people at Galaxie Limited, good job, because it goes together well. But now let's start taking this apart. Hood, just did a little sanding for the two nub marks where I took it off the sprue. Inside here, where the firewall comes up against the front fenders, these corners were squared out and they interfered with the seating of the front fenders. So I just whittled and sanded those two corners down on the firewall, and now it sits just fine. Yes, there are still some seams. Remember, there's no glue. It's just basically laid together. So we can take that off like so, and now we see the start of the frame. The frame has two giant locator pins which go right into the floor, the chassis pan. I love that. There's no guessing where that goes. Now the chassis pan, I ran into a little issue because there are these notches on the side. I'll just take the floor pan out. There are these notches on the side that sight into this channel on the chassis pan, like so. And then two marks for the rear ledge, and that drops right in. However, when I was dry fitting, there were on the body shell two additional locator tabs right in here, which interfered with the chassis pan going in. So I just had to remove those on either side. And with those gone, we can see that drops right in. Very nice. And the firewall, when that sits in there, the other big test of overall fit is to see how that lower edge of the firewall is then going to meet up with the chassis pan. And with that seated in like so, we have a good seam there. Of course, again, it's just dry fit. Once there's glue, that will all be a little bit tighter. But there we go. Okay, so thought I'd take a little break and just say a few things. We have our chassis and engine. Really beautiful assembly. Nicely done, nicely designed, goes together great. So all good things to say about that. We have our interior tub. Now, I mentioned how well, not a tub, the interior, how I changed my plan for the color scheme. Very happy with this, and not that I wasn't too, interested in the gray, but when I looked online on Google and saw that this is much closer to how the interiors on these cars were, and I have the different shades of brown to really kind of pull it together. So I went with that, and looking at it, I'm very happy I did. So with that, of course, the change in the body color from the gray, the pearl and the black two-tone, it was one of those things. When I started with it, I was really happy how it looked, but then the magic wore off. So I just did a simple respray. I didn't sand, I didn't take off the old paint. I just went right over with this Rustoleum gloss ocean mist. And I don't know if this is a color accurate for the vehicle in the time period, but in the 40s they were pretty much into these pastel type colors, and I think it works well with the browns for the interior. And it's not the best paint job I have done. I did have a cold snap after I had done the initial paint, and the paint crocodiled on me, so a lot of sanding to try to remedy that, and then a respray. I did botch up some of my panel lining here for the doors. Whatever, I am good enough with it as it is. Most of my mistakes, fortunately, will be covered up by the wood grain pieces and then the decal underneath. For the wood grain, I just took the pieces, sprayed them with the Krylon sand pebble, then painted over that with the AK ivory. It was not a perfect coverage, but I didn't want it that way because I wanted different color tones. And once that was dry, then I went over it with Tamiya brown panel line. So that gives me a final coat that has a lot of color variations, and I am hoping that is visible on the camera. But when it's done, it should look really good with the decal and then against the body color. So that's the plan. At this point, a lot of the little detail assembly for the body needs to be done, but as far as major assembly, it's basically set. So gonna have maybe a few pictures of video moving forward of that final assembly, and then it's final reveal time. Alrighty, back to it. Okay, one other thing that I wanted to say. I was going to do this little blurb during the final reveal, but since the car is not fully assembled, just as good a time as any. Galaxie did such a nice job with the detail on this chassis, the suspension assemblies, the way the wheels go together. I'm not into doing a whole diorama with this, but if you wanted to do a diorama like a garage with an old car half apart, boy, this kit would be perfect for that because of the way the wheels go together. You can have the wheels off, the drums, everything are there for the brakes, all the suspension detail. You could even have the car up on the lift and the frame, down on the ground like it's being worked on, have the engine half assembled, and this would still look fantastic. You'd have to putty in this gap in the exhaust, but otherwise, it would look fantastic. The only place that you cannot have the kit partially assembled is clearly this interior, but you could have that in there in the floor, and you could have the front end separate because the fenders glue on separate, so you could have the body on the lift, the front end over here, the chassis. Creatively, there's a tremendous resource in this kit for diorama building or even modifying this in various ways. The kit does come with some pieces to do a hot rod build or a street machine build. You could work with that or even go in different directions with it. You could build it with the body on and the whole front end off. There's a lot you could do with this. So, and the way the kit is designed, boy, the door is wide open to go ahead and do that. So, definitely a plus. Definitely points to quality kit design that you have those options available. So, yeah, don't mean to gush, but from the perspective I'm looking at things in terms of kit design and a manufacturer designing a kit and having its assembly go a certain way that you can easily vector off and do things. This is really a great job. So I'll leave it at that. Now we'll get to finishing up the assembly, and then, like I said, final reveal. Okay, so just wanted to pop in quick once again. I'm up to the point of doing the side molding for the wood trim. Now, in the instructions, they call for you to finish up with the body, mount it on the chassis, do all the outside detail work, and then do the side trim. I disagree. Reason being, you have to sight these trim pieces on here, and you need to know where to glue. So that's what I went ahead and did. And it's just, at least for me, I found it a lot easier working with this, spotting where I need to strip away the paint. And I had to remove this one detail molding for the keyhole in the door, since this is going to lay over, and we have it represented there. Much easier working with this off the chassis rather than on, and certainly without all the detail pieces on there, which may then be knocked loose. I just did the ones on the back because they're basically out of the way. So I used the trim pieces, just laying them over, and they do lay on there nicely, to spot 3 gluing points, and then strip the paint from those 3 points. That'll be my attachment for the molding piece. The decal will go on first. If the decal lays over this areas, I'll just trim the decal back. This way I can glue, and that's it. Now, as far as the glue, you've been seeing I've been using a lot of this Loctite Super Gel. I won't be using that because that can corrode the decal. I've used some Mr. Cement. I will not be using that because that chases through joints and it can run along the decal once the mold piece is on and destroy the decal. So I'll be using something that stays put, my handy dandy Testors liquid cement, because then I can put 3 dabs, and again, with the body off the chassis, I can hold it down to make sure it's flush against the body, and I won't have to worry about the glue, hopefully, affecting the decal. And then that will be on, and I will continue. You may notice as well in the instructions, they show the front fenders going on at this point. As I said earlier in the video, I put the fenders on early because I wanted to make sure I had them sighted correctly to the body. Also, doing it this way, you'd have to be very careful marking your glue line here to attach these, and without ruining the paint job. So I did things a little bit out of order, but that's why. And as I noted during the some of the detail parts, yes, this is very messy with these door seams, but I knew I was going to be covering that with the decal, so I didn't worry about it at all. Did have an oops down here. Not my best work, but whatever. It is what it is at this point. And now I know I can sight my trim pieces, and on they will go. All the glass is in. I just went back afterwards and did some detail painting in there to cover up the glass where it joined up. I used exclusively for that Testors Clear Part Cement because it will not fog the glass, and I can also use it to seal some of the gaps that were there from the glass going in. And then I just painted over with the Tamiya buff that I used on the roof. Normally I cut out the driver's side window, passenger side window. I did not on this kit because the glass area is small. Even with those cut out, it will be very difficult to look into this interior, as lovely as it is. So I just left the glass whole. This way the dust stays out, and I don't have to worry about ever trying to get in there and clean. So that will be hermetically sealed, and that will be that. Like I said, either way, to see any of this detail, you'd have to shine a light in there or put an LED in there to light it up from inside. I'm not inclined to do that on this build. So there you go. And just to show you, I had mentioned that I used some different metallics and even put a little decal in there. That decal is, once again, I went to my little jackpot stash of leftover Gundam decals, and you know what, it's a little instructional thing. You can't read it, it's illegible, it's so tiny, but at 24 scale it looks like it fits. So in it goes, and it just adds that little bit extra to that firewall, which had all this great detail on it. I wasn't going to let that go. So that's that. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. Okay, here we go with the final build for the Galaxie models. Chevrolet Fleetmaster Aerosedan. Here we go. Now, you've pretty well seen it, but now all the small detail parts are on and final assembly is done. Did my clear coat, and that is that. So here we are. Now, first thing I will say in finishing off the detail parts, I showed briefly using my pin vise drill to mount the radio antenna. You also need to drill out holes for the side mirrors. This is noted in the instructions. They show you where to open up the holes, so it's not a big deal. If you don't have a drill or you're not comfortable using a hand drill to make holes, you can just cut the locator pins off these, scrape your paint, and just do a flush mount. Of course, using the holes is easier, but there you go, either way. So what is there to say about the build? As usual, I'm very happy with the way it came out, but I've noted in prior segments on this how well everything goes together, the detail on the parts and the kit overall. So all thumbs up on that. Very happy with the design and engineering of the kit. As far as the final build, I talked earlier about changing the paint color. Sometimes when you do a build, this will come up. You start with one idea and have a picture in your head, but when you start going about it, it's not what you thought it would be, or it's not working out for you aesthetically, whatever the case may be, and you want to change course. So I changed course here. Now, you could, when changing a paint scheme, if you know how well your paint is going to cover, you may want to go back and just remove the original paint with, the super purple cleaner, or, sanding down, putting a primer coat over. I did a little test shot of this Krylon, this Rustoleum ocean mist that I used, and it covered great. So I just went right over the paint that was on there. Very simple, not a problem at all. As far as the build itself goes, I did discuss briefly changing the build order from what the instructions indicate, specifically in regard to doing this side molding and some of the trim pieces. Not to say that you can't do things the way the instructions show, but again, there's no substitute for really getting a feel as to how things are going to go together, other than doing your test fits and seeing what you would be more comfortable with, keeping the instructions in mind, making sure that you don't do something that is going to be a problem later on, but just working it through. Now, another thing I want to point out, the fog lights right up front here, they do come with small mounts. The instructions show you can either drill out a hole to mount them to either side of the windshield, or you can trim them and attach them to that front sill where I have them now. I decided to just ignore those and mount the lights directly to that front sill because those pieces were very delicate. The attachment point to the lights themselves was a tiny little spot of a pin to a recess, not even a pinhole, just a recess on those lights. And it just screamed to me, it's going to fall apart later on. So I figured I'd do something a lower profile in terms of having the lights right down on the sill, but certainly a safer way to attach them. And that was that. Now, I basically did a full stock build, except for the engine, which I did the 3 carburetor setup because I thought that just looked very cool. You notice here I do have the hinges for the hood attached, but I did not glue them to the hood. Those pieces are really nicely detailed with the semi-gloss black I painted. Might be hard to see on camera, but those are supposed to locate in there and then glue to these attachment points under the hood. They're nice location spots, should be a solid joint, and then you can have the hood actually open and close on those hinges. However, as with almost all the builds I've done, I prefer just to leave the hood completely separate, so when I take it off and want to display the engine, it's all there for view. But in this case, I just glued the hinges in place because they're nice detailed parts. Also, there's this big hole in the firewall where they go in, and I just didn't want to have a big blank spot there that would have had to been covered up with a little square of sheet styrene to make that look presentable, because with all that other wonderful detail under the hood, those 2 big holes really would have looked ridiculous. The interior, if I have one quibble with the kit, it's really not with the kit, it's the design of the car. You know, the interior assembly is beautiful. There's a lot of detail there. There's just the little bit of effort I put into it. The interior really looked great, but this car just doesn't have a whole lot of glass space, so it is difficult to see in there. And on camera, you're probably not really seeing much of anything. But if you shine a light in there, you can see it. It's small viewing areas. That's the design of the original car, and that's the way it is. I could have cut the window, but like I said, that didn't really seem like a good option to me. I have to say, when mating everything together, that interior, it locates beautifully around the interior of the body, so you don't have any gaps along where the door cards meet the window piece line, the hood, the front windshield, or the back window. So it's a really great fit. And again, good job, Galaxie models. So, chassis, as I mentioned before, really, really nice. Great detail under there as well. And that wraps it up. So, like I said, great build. Would highly recommend this as far as a first kit. You know, as well as the kit goes together, there are some steps that do require some finesse and experience, particularly mating these front fenders to the rest of the body and not having horrible gaps. There are quite a few small, delicate pieces in here. So I wouldn't necessarily say this is a good first model for someone, but certainly if you're looking to, step up to something a little more involved, this is a great spot to go. There are, I counted up in the instructions, 148 parts involved to build the car as it is sitting here on the table. There's about 20 or so other parts in the kit for doing the other build versions, which you do not use on the stock. But yeah, a great build. And certainly if you have a few kits under your belt and you're looking to step up to something a little more complex, this is a great place to go because it just goes together so well. So the Galaxie Chevrolet Fleetmaster Aerosedan. Great kit. Like I said, if you see it, certainly worth building. Give it a shot. You will not be disappointed. So, I mentioned, I believe I mentioned, anyway, this was very satisfying to finish this, particularly because I started this kit about 7 months ago, but in the interim, I had a flood in my basement. I am, unfortunately, currently going through a pretty significant health issue. So, delay after delay, it felt really good to get this done and see it in its final form. And it's the first formal build conclusion at the new hobby area, which, thank God, I got everything done here before my health became an issue. But that is being addressed, and hopefully we'll get back on track. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next build. And in the meantime, always remember, enjoy your hobby. All right.